Now, let me see here. You know what? The front is right there where that little yellow sign is right over here. That's the front. That's the marquee. Yeah, this really brings back some memories here. This was the whole club right here. From starting right here to right down there. It was called the Showbiz. Every group from Ron Buford, Cooking Bad, Family Fair, Cold-Bone together, we all used to play right down here. There'll never be the type of entertainment it was then and the way we were all working back in the 70s. This was the scene. Seattle was the scene.
I've been buying records for a long time and never really dug for 45s because I don't have the patience. I don't like that they're too small and I just don't have the patience. And I'm at a record show. I see this box of records, so I run over there. This guy beats me to it, and he's taking his sweet time going through everything. So I'm sitting there waiting. While I'm waiting, there's a shoebox full of 45s next to it. So I start fingering through them, like whatever. I see one that says Bold Soul Brother on the label. So I'm like, it caught my eye. I'm like, let me check that out. Put it on my portable player, and I heard the drums, and I went crazy.
Want to tell you about my baby. Talking about nobody but my girl. Want to tell you about my baby. Talking about nobody but my girl. She looks good, like a woman should. Her soul too, so is good. Take care of business every night. I want to tell you people, everything's alright. Look for him, talking about a both soul sister, taking care of both soul brother. Wanna tell you people about a both soul brother. I am better than any other. Yeah, 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 yeah. Woo!
You know, I think in every town of a certain size, everywhere around the country and all around the world, you know, there's cool music happening. You know, it just doesn't always make it to the surface or get known.
So I think if people think of Seattle, even now, they do not think black music at all.
In 1992, Nirvana knocked Michael Jackson out of the #1 spot on the Billboard album chart. After that, Seattle would be known as a music town.
I mean, it's amazing how many groups from Seattle have made it big in the last, 15, 20 years. You know, if you're a rock band now and you're in Seattle, it's probably a good place to be. But nobody's made it. Well, only person who's made it big on the R&B hip-hop side would be Sir Mix-a-Lot.
I like big butts and I cannot lie. You other brothers can't deny. Now when a girl walks in with an itty-bitty waist and a round thing in your face, you get sprung.
Seattle's known for rock. And it's not, that's not a bad thing. It's just that that's what blew up. It's like you hear people go and they go, you guys have a lot of rock and Mix-a-Lot. That's it.
It is kind of amazing how that, you could be doing hundreds of gigs and then playing in front of tens of thousands of people, and then nobody ever heard of you.
It's what was weird to me about soul and funk in the Northwest, it never really exploded. It just kind of simmered, cooked a while, and then we went somewhere else.
God, I don't know. Why did... Damn. What happened?
Before grunge would officially brand Seattle a music town, people in the know were already well aware of Seattle's rich musical history. From the 1930s to the 50s, Seattle had a thriving jazz scene, producing musical luminaries like Quincy Jones, Ray Charles, and Ernestine Anderson.
Seattle, when I was a kid, people in America that were not aware of this, Seattle was the hottest city in America during the World War II. I mean, on fire, baby. And all the military was here, for Marines, Navy, everything. And it was on fire. The clubs, we worked 3 clubs a night.
For musicians my age, it was definitely jazz influence. We were all influenced by jazz.
Jazz musicians like Overton Berry, Woody Woodhouse, Floyd Standifer, they gave my generation our first chance at being professional musicians and professional entertainers.
Music changed, and it went from cool jazz to R&B to funk.
Dave Lewis, Combo, they really started the funk.
There was jazz here, but there was also other kinds of music here, like R&B, and funk bands. And they really knocked me out, and there were a number of those bands. It wasn't just 1 or 2 good bands. There were a lot of good bands.
In the African-American community, jazz slowly transitioned into R&B in the early 1960s. Live bands played soul and funk music to packed clubs 7 nights a week.
People wouldn't go out till 11 o'clock. And there were after-hours places. Sometimes we played at 4 o'clock in the morning. Thursday through Sunday packed.
Like, we played for everybody, from the people who were like working people to the pimps and the hoes and the players and the drug dealers. And
stars of the day coming through this one place and just, oh man, we used to have some good times.
Just about every one of these bands had an opportunity to open for a bigger band. Bobby Womack, Earth, Wind & Fire.
There were clubs within walking distance of the central area. Every 5 blocks, any direction, you'd run into a club.
There was so much music, and there was no reason to be home on a Friday night.
The scene is booming.
There's nothing like it in Seattle now. Nothing like it. Where do people go?
By the early 1990s, grunge music had taken center stage in Seattle. The thriving funk and soul scene of the 1960s and 70s had left no superstars, no gold records, and no mention in official histories. All that was left were a few 45 singles.
I never really set out to collect records. I was just always buying records. I have about 50,000. I have a couple storage units that I rent. I was just buying records. And then luckily that day is when I discovered the record. It said something like Bold Soul Brother. So that caught my attention. And then that's when I noticed that it was a Seattle record. I figured, what else is there? Maybe this group has more records, or maybe there were other groups from Seattle that did this. That's when I started my detective work and found all this crazy stuff. Well, I bought it because it was another Black on White Affair record. And I found it was like a mint old store copy in Golden Oldies. It's probably been sitting there since it came out. And it was cheap, like $1. I think $1 or $2. It was more sweet soul, more of a ballad or type of record. The thing I was going for is like hard, gritty funk, heavy drums, thick bass lines. With that, that's what I collect personally. So to me personally, it didn't stand out to someone else. And like you said, if that's the one that hooked on with Quincy, maybe it stood out to Quincy.
Good God. That lady, that sweet soul lady. Who's that woman? That sweet soul lady.
My mom was persuaded by George, the lead guitar player of this group, to purchase a Hammond organ for me. And I remember she talked to him and made him, you know, well, how's he gonna pay for it? George was a little go-getter boy. He was a hustler. And he got the gigs. He told her, he said, well, I'll make sure he pays for it because I'm gonna keep us working.
And George Horton had gone down to the Seattle Center to attend some function. And while he was there, he was very fortunate to have gotten a contact with the people putting together the Something Cool USO show. The people with Something Cool said they had to have a band name immediately, so he just, off the top of his head, said the Black and White Affair. And it seemed like a good enough name, I suppose. It was honest.
And one night we were going out to rehearse, and he asked me, what do you think about recording? I said, well, sounds all right to me. You know, I didn't have any idea he was talking about something that I sang.
So I contracted with Carney Barton at Audio, and we went in there and recorded Sweet Soul Lady and Until the Real Thing Comes Along.
For 16, 17 years old, you know, we were on the radio list. Black and White Affair's record was #7 on the charts in the Northwest region, you know? Yeah.
We thought, wow, maybe we're going to make it. Maybe we're not going to starve doing the terrible little gigs.
That one is also on the Topaz label. That's Carney Barton's label. He's a legendary studio engineer in Seattle and did a lot of early rock stuff.
I'm still using the equipment that I used back in 58, 59, so forth. And I'm still using the reel-to-reel tape recorders that I used in the Ampex 350. I think the analog is much better than digital sound because you're recording the full spectrum of the sound instead of little bits and using the computer to fill in the spaces.
Carney Barton is kind of the George Martin of Seattle, you'd call him. He was the guy that recorded Black and White Affair, the Soul Swingers, the Topics, the Sonics, the Witch, Venture stuff.
I put things out on Topaz mainly for the group themselves so they'd have a legit label to go with, and I really didn't have the time or whatever to go out and promote it, so unfortunately they never got, Topaz Records never really got pushed that much. I got it to the distributor and they got it out to radio stations and that was it, but I wasn't able to go out and really hype it.
You know, I usually remember every record I find. I don't remember where I found this one. I think I saw a lot of people asking me, like DJs that call in and say, hey, I need this record, Ron Buford. So I went out and found it. I did research on the label, and it was from Linwood, Washington. It's like, well, let me drive out there and see if I can find anything out. And I drove up there, and it was just bushes. Like, there was nothing there. I like how things were recorded back then, kind of raw, you know. Oh, it's loud.
First organ was a Thomas organ that had a record player on the side, and my father got me that. My mother told me, look, if I got good grades and graduate, I could get a brand new GTO. I'd go down there every day to the Pontiac dealer and sit in it, call my mother, listen, fall out, have a tantrum. Only thing that changed that was the B3 and the Leslie. Oh, the car? That was out of the question. Actually, the B3 back then cost more than the car. I met Wheedle Thomas. He was working with the same group called the Monterey's. And he decided to stay up here for a while, and he had left the Monterey's.
Then I met Ronnie, and the Ronnie, at that particular time, he was supposed to be the top jazz band player, so he wanted to record, asked me if I would come and do my song vocally with him, and so we rehearsed one time.
And we were doing a gig at the 410, and we caught one of those magic grooves. We left straight from the 410 and went to the studio.
And I just put the words to it, you know, gather around me. Gather around, everybody. Let me tell you all about this feeling deep inside makes you want to stomp and shout. No, that's how that got started.
Deep Soul, second tape.
Nobody in the country was pumping out that sound, that Ron Buford, Earl Thomas sound.
It sold 5,000 copies in 2 weeks.
In San Francisco, we were like #1 on the blues station down there for almost a year. I mean, it was incredible.
I used to get this magazine from London, a soul magazine that had records in it. And I remember I got an issue in the mail. And I had put it on the coffee table, and I was looking at it one day at the singer on the cover. And it was her promo picture, like from the early 70s, I believe. And I looked at the address on it again. Well, first there was a phone number, and it had a 206 area code. And then I was like, I thought she was from London originally, so I was just like looking. And then it said Boylston Avenue. I was like, it's Seattle. I knew it was a house, a residential address. So I drove there and knocked on the door to see if the family was living there. Of course, they weren't, and the guy didn't know what I was talking about. He probably thought I was nuts. But that's more like a northern soul record. It's kind of like sweet soul.
This woman by the name of Lavera Clark had a little, I guess you would say, a little business, singing business, and she had heard me sing in church. And so she approached me, and she said to me, you really do have a voice. You have a tremendous voice, and I want you to come and be a part of my company, Sepia Recording. And I said to her, I don't know how to sing anything but gospel. And so she said, you have the kind of voice that you can sing anything. She said, so I'll help you, and I want you to sing with me. So I knew my husband wouldn't approve of it, and I surely did know the church wasn't going to approve of it. And I felt like Mom and Daddy wouldn't approve of it either, but I'm a fiery little sister. I decided I'd do it anyway. It was just a little love affair. Then you broke my heart. Oh, why don't you just love me the same as I playing for a church at the same time. And then we started our little weekend tours, and I didn't always get back in time to play for the church that I was playing for at the time. And so they asked me to leave the church because I was singing the devil's music too. So I said, yeah, but the devil music pays my bills. So then Lavera passed away, and that sort of ended my involvement with that particular kind of music. And up until about 3 years ago, when all of a sudden I heard that Little Love Affair had caught on in another country.
This record I found in Goodwill for 35 cents. And I don't remember why I picked it up. I think it just sounded, the cooking bag just sounded funky to me. Doing my research and looking for these records, a friend of mine was working at Magnolia Hi-Fi, and he said, oh, there's this guy here that, he knows a lot about Seattle music, you should talk to him. So I came in one day and I talked to him. He was in Cooking Bag. He said, oh yeah, I had a band called the Cooking Bag. And so, once again, you know, he's right in front of my face, but you never know if you don't ask. We play it. It's funky. You know, It's my thing.
Song, but you know it's a song I sang. Well, that's a song, but you know it's a song I sang. Lately you've been acting strange. You disappoint that. Yeah, the heaven on my mind.
We recorded that live, no overdubs. We recorded straight. Everybody recorded at the same time, and it's pretty good recording considering. You know, I think what they had was 2 8-tracks they put together, so it was 16 tracks.
Oh, that's pretty serious.
So yeah, they were trying something new. We practiced every day except for Saturday and Sunday, and we were so good we burned ourselves out here. And we were such a big band. We were charging back then $1,500 a night, which was a lot of money back then. But we had 13 people in the band, so. Wasn't a lot of money to be made.
I still don't consider myself a 45 guy or a 45 collector. Although when people say, "Oh, you got this," yeah, I got that. Like, I do have a lot of 45s, but I still don't consider myself, you know, more disco 12 inches and whatnot. But the same guy called me. He says, "Yeah, I need this record too. Robbie Hill's Family Affair." It's okay. I look for it. Maybe 2 days, I found it in a junk shop. A girl I was dating at the time was going to Seattle Central, and I was always playing with records and stuff, and I said something about Robbie Hill. Played the record, so I said something about Robbie Hill, and she said, "Oh, the guy at school?" And I said, "What?" And I was like, "Huh?" She said, "Yeah, he talks to me all the time. He's always flirting with me." And I said, "Really?" "Yeah." So I went up there and it was them, and they were working up there. And then I always wondered, they had to record more stuff. Where's it at? You know, where are the tapes at? And a lot of the tapes are gone. They don't know what happened to them or where they're at.
I just wanna be like myself. I just wanna be, yeah, like myself. Sisters and brothers, listen to me.
My favorite group was Sly and the Family Stone. I said, you know what? I'm gonna put me a group together that involves family. Then seeing Will and Kenny made it easy. You know, then my cousin, oh yeah, he plays keyboard.
Robbie was the head of the band. He was like Papa. Everybody, I mean, it was his band, Robbie Hill's Family Affair. His brothers were all involved.
The singers were Will and Kenny, but with Bernadette added with them 3 singers. Oh my gosh, it was awesome. Everybody had full-time jobs. And then I remember telling them, I said, I'm gonna have everybody quit their jobs. And they said, quit our jobs? They said, well, what are we gonna do for money in the meantime? I said, oh, don't even worry about that. I said, I guarantee you we'll be working. And I didn't know, but the only thing I knew is I was gonna get up and bust my behind, try to keep us working. And that's how much I was into it and I believed in trying to put it in this music scene. But you know what? I kept the group booked up for about 2 years in a row. We were never without work.
Golden Oldies was actually pretty good. I don't think a lot of people touch their 45s, you know. Or I remember I went in there and I said, oh, cold rolling together. I was like, that sounds funky. They're probably pretty funky. It's local. I just bought them all, the whole section. There was like 3 or 4 45s in there. And then I'm always trading records, like, you know, with all kinds of people selling records. And so I always go to the same post office. And I sent a bunch off, and then they said, what are these? Are these 45s? And I said, yeah. She said, oh, you ever heard of Cold Bowling Together? I said, yeah. And then she said, oh, yeah, that was my boyfriend's band. They were real big on the scene.
Somebody's gonna burn ya. Somebody's gonna fool ya. Wow, wow. Experts gonna learn ya. Yes, it will. The teacher's gonna school ya. Wow, wow. Yeah. But you better believe. If you're trying to deceive me, no, girl. You better believe. Oh, baby. You're trying to deceive me. Oh, girl. Somebody's gonna burn ya.
I wanted to be in the band. Well, they said, well, there's a problem, Tony. You can't sing, and you don't play an instrument.
And Tony wasn't a musician. We met Tony through playing football and just knowing him. And Tony was a really great artist. That's what everybody knew. Tony was an artist.
So I went down to a pawn shop and bought a pair of sparkly bongos, some bad plastic heads, just terrible, sounded like crap. Not to me.
We opened the show for this group, the Chambers Brothers, who were huge at that time with a song called Time Has Come Today. That was like one of the top 10 songs.
And our first gig ever was in front of like 2,000 people. I'd never played a gig before.
We just thought we made the big time.
And then we decided to drop out of college and move to Seattle, because we were going to get famous the first or second week.
And they're looking for new guys. And me and Kenny G and Lee Turner were on Franklin High School Jazz Band. And in 1974, Franklin High was #1 in the nation, the jazz band. So the jazz band was really good.
I was going to Franklin High School, and a friend of mine, Philip Wu, who's a keyboard player, and he was doing this gig with these guys. He was in Cold Bowling Together. And he told them about me, because they needed a sax player. We were local, not superstars, but we were local, well-known. Cold Bowling Together, yeah, I heard your song on the radio, nice song. So we had always thought we would get a major record deal.
At the time, we didn't think, oh, if somebody from this group is going to become a superstar, it's going to be him. I don't think anybody, even he wouldn't have said that.
It's kind of like a little world to itself. It's so far away from everything, so far from San Francisco or any other city. It seems like we're in a little province up here,
I still feel like we kind of live on the edge of the earth out here. Even though, we're so much more connected than we ever were, I still get the sense from everybody who lives here that while we're not creating in a vacuum, there's a perceived vacuum that we're all working in here.
I think that there's always been an innovation quotient to the Seattle and Pacific Northwest Sound.
Powerful. And everybody says, what's in the water up there to me? I mean, not only music, but I went to school, high school with the same high school had Bruce Lee and Jimi Hendrix and all those people. It is something about the water or the atmosphere.
It's got a feeling. It's the environment. When you're so close to Mother Nature, you got the sound on one end, on the west end, on the east end, you got the lake. You got all these mountains, you got seasonal changes. Anytime Mother Nature wants to rear her head up, man, look. Pow!
Think about your culture and your surroundings. If you live in sunny wherever, you might be out playing volleyball or something.
Just being in Seattle gives you a slight advantage because it rains a lot here, so you're going to be inside practicing instead of like LA, you'll be on the beach, you won't be practicing.
If it wasn't for those rainy days, I wouldn't be here, because I practiced in the house. What are you gonna do? Gonna go out and play in the rain? Yeah, you can do. We did lots of stuff in the rain. But cozy inside playing the saxophone, there's a feeling. And I did that for years, and I got good. Had it been sunny outside every day, I probably would have been more into sports.
In 1965, most of Seattle's African-American population lived in a 4-mile neighborhood smack dab in the middle of the city called the Central District. And today, just like then, we call it the CD.
In 1955, my dad put together enough money to buy a house, excited,
but we'd only lived in West Seattle. He wanted to live there, and he was told by realtors that that is not a realistic option for a Negro. So you have to buy a house in the CD. The fact that 88% of the black population in 1965 lived or resided in the Central area is a function of the historic and institutionalized racism.
I came to Seattle looking for, you know, the hood, and people said, this is the hood. It's like, wow. I remember visiting a relative who lived in Yesler Terrace, and so like, she lives in Yesler Terrace, but look at that view of the sound that she's got. How cool is that? And even friends of mine who came to visit from back east, from Detroit, family members who come from Detroit or New York, whatever, couldn't believe how wonderful it was.
Growing up in the CD, most of my childhood I lived in the projects, Bryant Manor Apartments, right on 19th and Yesler, right across the street from Home of Good Barbecue, Sammy's Cafe. You know, I had a ball. I mean, I was poor and didn't even know it. It was just like incredible culture, incredible depth, but I took it for granted. I thought everybody lived like that. Before the Bryant Manor Apartments were there was this wall, just what was a white, looks like, I remember being a white fence. There was graffiti on that wall. But not graffiti talking about so-and-so shot such and such. It was like pictures of Muhammad Ali and James Brown and Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass.
It was like a little Harlem.
Oh, it was an amazing place. The thing that knocked me out about the Central area is the musicians. And I'm talking about not just the professional musicians, but the students.
I have cooked food right here in this house for Ray Charles. All those musicians back in those days, they ended up being at my house. And my husband being a musician too. At that time, we used to practice in the garage it was a garage. And they used to practice back there. My husband had set a studio up back there.
Boy, I was exposed to some of the fantastic musicians on the face of the earth, man. Tony Poindexter. Quincy Jones.
That was the place that you would go to because there was always kids. They played music. He had this Hammond organ in the living room there, and he just did what he wanted, and his parents made the house available for all the kids, and a lot of the kids didn't have anywhere to go.
No, you don't want to know. They drove me crazy. But I always had my door open for them.
I hear about, oh yeah, where are you going? We're going over to Beaufort's to practice, or we're going over to Beaufort to do this.
There was a lot of kids that would come here that just had one parent, and they would be working. So I always had enough here for them to come and where they could eat, you know, and do things like that.
When do you turn on the house?
Probably when me and Mama get through pouting, all the permits are through.
So like this year, next year? Who knows?
Put it this way, when the Creator says, okay, you've mourned enough in advance, okay? You're mourning for something that isn't even dead yet, okay? Just getting some new parts. It's hard to throw things away, man. I've been here since 52. 52? Man.
This is the neighborhood where we all roamed. I mean, there's little kids running around, like I was telling you, Herman Brown, and all of us, great memories here. This is the neighborhood. I mean, you know what? Don't look like too much change, does it, Clifford? No. As far as structures of the homes and stuff. No. But mostly everything looks the same, Jan, it really does. Wow.
Even though the community has totally regentrified, I won't say totally, I should say 95%. There's still a warmth in this area that I don't feel anywhere else in the city.
Much more music at the soul of the Northwest. KYAC.
KYAC was a station that was in the community, that came from the community. It wasn't some people that made a lot of money that were owning the station and wanted it to be. It was actually a station that was in the community, and it definitely had a pulse on what was happening.
At that point, there was the R&B station KYAC, and KYAC had a DJ, Robert Nesbitt.
The Robert Nesbitt program at 534 from KYAC FM. We were a voice for that community, whether it be a church, whether it be a band, whether it be the Black Panthers. We were the conduit of information for everything that was happening Black in Seattle.
Everybody listened to KYC. I mean, that was the soul station. You know, they played all the hits.
You're listening to the Soul Brothers on the Soul Giant, KYAC AM Kirkland, KYAC FM Seattle.
They showed great, strong support for the local music scene on the soul side of town. That encouraged us, because we're on the radio with all the other famous people.
As far as just being a radio station that was all about entertainment, music, the community, I don't think anything like that there's been nothing like that since KYC. Just went away. Now, there is no local band like Robbie Hill and the Family Affair. Fantastic artist Robbie Hill is and his Family Affair. And naturally, you can see them at the best tavern in town.
For some reason, I couldn't go to sleep. It was about 6 o'clock in the morning. And I was just laying there, just trying to cat nap. I always had my radio on. I'm one for going to bed with music. And I remember hearing Frank P. Barrow, and he said, "This tune is number 1. Ding, 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 ding." I said, "Am I dreaming?"
I just wanna be like myself. I just wanna be, yeah, like myself.
Everybody come running in, listening, and they start hugging and screaming, and got on the phone and start calling Kenny and Will, and I would say an hour after that, the phone was just ringing off the hook, friends calling. I mean, that was probably one of the greatest feelings I've ever had, of letting you know that all the work that we put into it was paying off. And it did, in a big way, too.
And don't forget, tomorrow night is Stash Your Cash night. Ladies, you get in for a dime. Schooners of beer are a dime from 6 until 9. Remember, that's on Broadway, 219 Broadway, where your friends go to get it on.
Oh, they had tons of clubs. There was Ichabod's,
Club Avenue,
District Tavern,
the Black and Tan,
the Eagles Auditorium,
the Tudorville Trolley,
the Showbiz.
You'd play at the Golden Crown, which is actually called the Golden Crown Up. Why was it called that? Because the Golden Crown was a Chinese restaurant that you went downstairs to eat at the restaurant. Upstairs was the bar.
The biggest problem with the Golden Crown was the bands who had to carry all of their gear up the steps.
And the gig started at 11 p.m. and ended at 4 a.m. We played 5 sets.
Downtown with the House of Entertainment, which people called the Ho, and the Soul Cellar was pretty much the nexus of that scene, the R&B scene. We had another gig that was one of our regulars, and it was called the Blue Post Tavern. And this was in the Central District, near the top of Madison. And that was a good gig for us because it was a real soul crowd.
The scene was very vibrant.
Not only did you have the clubs that we were performing in and just going to party in, but you had after hours everywhere. You could go to an after hours speakeasy, looking through the door, yeah, you could come on in, all over the place. From Chinatown to, like I said, they were everywhere.
We also played schools, we played at Kennedy High School. Cold bowling together at Kennedy High School. You couldn't get Earth, Wind & Fire, so hey, you guys can play. Hey, can you play Earth, Wind & Fire song? How much we getting played? Yes, we can do Earth, Wind & Fire songs. You want Commodores? No problem.
And here's one you won't believe from TJ's Men's Shop. The more you spend, the more you save. You got that? TJ's Men's Shop at 116 Pike Street on Pike between 1st and 2nd Avenue.
Well, we used to all shop at this place called TJ's. TJ's for the man with the woman on his mind. That's how it went. That was this commercial. And then there were Stanley's shoes right next door. So you would get your platform shoes at Stanley's, you go right next door to TJ's. I bought a suit at TJ's that was green with this green and white piping. I had a brim.
When we got Kenny was an all-star player in the stage band. His clothes were a little fashion challenged, We took him down to Mr. D's and bought him a few pimp suits, you know? And we were like, we got to dress this guy up.
I wanted good-looking guys, and there was a reason for that. Get the good-looking guys in the group, you're gonna get the women. If you get the women, the men will follow.
We would see some of the groups we'd play with. You know, we got to play with Kool and the Gang, Earth, Wind and Fire, you know, a lot of other groups. And some of them had uniforms or costumes, and we didn't have anything. We barely had shoes. I just started drawing, and they were pretty funny, very, very inspired by Superfly. And I created these huge chest openings. None of us had any hair on our chest, but it just was for style. The only one that had any hair was Kenny, and he had like 3.
There were those that were wanting to be players, and so they'd come in with the dog collars on the shirts. You see what I'm saying? And their hat tipped.
The big sleeves and the big long collars and platforms and Huggy Bear, only not quite as flamboyant, although the pimp thing here was huge.
I was walking right along that little post there, and went, oh, fell like that, fell all on my head, and I had big old shoes like that, like you see those pimps back there with those Superfly type, trying to be cool walking, and slid right off there and fell. And I took the shoes and I threw them in the garbage, never wore them no more.
Heads held high, filled with pride. This was filled with self-respect. None except myself, drooling, I demand due respect.
Cooking Back, This Is Me. That was a protest song. That was a, or at least an affirmation of Black pride, is what that song was about.
If you listen to the Cooking Bag song, the lyrics, this is me, heads held high, can't help but be filled with pride.
I think that was opinions that a lot of us had in those days, was that we're gonna just be who we are, because we're getting screwed anyway.
This is me once filled with self-reject, learned to accept myself truthfully, now I demand due respect. That's Black. Can't get no blacker than that, you know?
Black Panthers had a headquarters about 3 blocks from my house, right up on 19th and Spruce, right across from the Boys Club. They had a little center there, and they would bring all of us in and kind of remind us of who we were.
I remember when that Black Power movement was going on here, when I was probably about 14, maybe 15. I kind of became a member, you know, had the whole hat on and all that, and you go through the drill and everything.
Well, there was a lot of us that went down to Oakland for a Black Student Union convention and got exposed to the most charismatic speaker any of us had ever heard, and that was Chairman Bobby Seale.
Well, this is all the Black Panther Party has to say to all those pigs in the power structure. The Black Panther Party, along with other members of the community, are feeding 2,000 young brothers and sisters every morning. If that's subversive, then damn it, we subversive.
March 29th, Black Student Union takeover of Franklin High School. 150 Black students out of 180 participated and closed down the school and took over the principal's office because 2 young Black girls had been kicked out of school and told that they couldn't come back until they looked ladylike. Looking ladylike was wearing their hair straight. They said, we have to arrest somebody because we got to stem the tide and let them know they can't do this. They arrested us on April 4th, 1968. That's the very day that Martin Luther King got killed. After that day to June, 300 plus young Blacks joined the Black Panther Party and several hundred joined Black Student Union.
It was all reflected in the music and the way we dressed too. We started wearing black tams, dressing like Black Panthers.
We did not separate our culture from our political philosophy or political action.
He was my high school Black history teacher, Larry Gossett was, and he was a member of the Black Panther Party.
I remember vividly, often, integrating local community-based cultural artists into community rallies.
He was my teacher at school, but at night, me being a musician, I'd play at the Black Panther rallies.
All the groups that we liked were making social commentary too. So I think that was another thing. It was just that time. And you know, people are making social commentary now, but it's kind of mild compared to what people were doing in those days, you know.
They used to have two musicians union locals here. One was basically white only, and the other was black. But the black musicians union had this little tiny hole in the wall for the union office. But they had jam sessions every Friday and Saturday night that went all night long. So the white musicians who were really hip and wanted to play came there. Because the black musicians didn't care. You know, you come in, you play, as long as you can play, like.
Having Caucasians in the band, I didn't care. If you could play music, come on, let's play some music then.
To me, the most beautiful thing about Seattle was they didn't have no color trend. You find good player teams, and they were already tight. And you might find a Chinese dude in there, a couple white guys, two black guys.
And so it was no problem getting Philip as far as ethnicity because Philip he grew up in a CD. So basically he was Chinese, but he was like a black Chinese guy.
I always had, you know, a lot of black friends, and most people never looked at me from my color.
And Philip Wu, you know, we thought he was black. I mean, because he was so funky.
They didn't want me in the band because I wasn't black. They wanted it to be an all-black band, but they figured Philip was at least a minority.
We figured, okay, we're going to soul band. Okay, soul band is Kool and the Gang, Commodores.
When Kenny got in the band, we're at Philip's house, Kenny comes over and plays. And like my brother and I, we heard him, we're just like, done. He sounds like Grover Washington Jr., forget this. And I remember Tony said, we can't have the white people in the band. Then we're like, what? We said, well, let's put it, if he doesn't get in the band, we quit.
And then somebody said, what about war? You guys love war. Oh, yeah. Slide in the Family Stone. Yeah. Kyle Power. Yeah. Okay. Let him in. So then whoever, if you could play, that was the final test of the final barometer.
Music from the Pacific Northwest has been totally overlooked up until, like, I guess the early 90s, and maybe for a blip there in the early 60s with, like, the Kingsmen, that was a Portland band, and the Wailers.
You know, there were some groups making some headway, but for whatever reason, the R&B scene just never, and it was kind of like almost like a Jim Crow kind of thing was going on, you know, where, yeah, you can only go so far.
The reason Little Love Affair didn't go any further in the States than it did, because I couldn't get the radio stations to play it here. I couldn't, none of the stations. And of course, then we had one small, dinky little black station and humongous number of white stations. Wouldn't even let me in the door.
There weren't a lot of mixed clubs back then like there are now, where whites and blacks hang out together. Everything was either black or white.
You know, the hip ones snuck in. You know, it's just like the juke joints, the South, you know. There's always be some blonde kids in there getting down, you know. Always.
We just didn't get to go to the clubs where it was predominantly white.
It didn't bother me that I was the only white guy in the club either. It didn't bother me at all. I never thought like that. I was just having a great time. But a lot of my friends wouldn't come to where I was playing. They were scared for whatever reason.
As long as I was carrying my musical instrument, I felt a sense of immunity.
I was in the band. Plus, I could play pretty well. And so I kind of got a free pass.
The musicians themselves really were sort of colorblind. Places that hired them were not necessarily colorblind all the time.
It was difficult because the white club owners didn't want to hire a black band.
I call this the 2.5.
A couple black guys, it doesn't constitute a black band.
You only could have 2 black people in the band. And that's why I call it, well, 2.5 if somebody was mixed or hoppa.
But if it's mostly black, then it's a black band. And I guess it was a thing like the club owners, they wanted a certain clientele to come to their establishment. And if they had a black band, they're gonna have more of a black clientele.
I won't mention the name of the club, but it was out in the North End. They thought we were the crew, we're the labor. And we're getting ready to get in our ice suits. And the guy says, oh, there's a problem here. are you guys the group that are playing? There's a problem, you can't play here. I said, the problem is we have a contract. I said, if you don't want us to play here, that's your bag. Give us the check and we will leave. He gave us the check and we left.
You probably don't know about Push. Okay, Push was the white version of what we were doing, and they had all the gigs and were making all the money.
If you were a white musician, you could have a good, some people could have really great livings and not even be famous. But if you're a black musician, it was really hard because limited funds, limited options. Even though there were a lot of places you could play, the money was not the same.
Being in a black band, we had our own gigs that Push would never play. And Push would play the gigs that we always wanted to play, but we could never get those gigs. Every now and then we might get a little taste.
It's kind of surprising it never broke out, but at the same time there was really the whole industry machine wasn't here.
I think everything slips into obscurity. There'll be like a blip here and a blip here about whatever went before. Unless you turn it into a multinational corporation like the Beatles or the Rolling Stones, it's just gonna be a blip.
It was really interesting to me to think that, I mean, not only that there was a scene, like a soul scene in Seattle, just in general, but that it was actually really good, and there was some really amazing music being made here. It wasn't just a locals only scene that never got out of Seattle because nobody would have ever cared about it if they heard these records, but just because people didn't have the chance to actually hear them in the first place.
Seattle was never a media center, I don't think like labels came up here sniffing around, and there just wasn't a label that like kind of grew huge and organic like Motown out of here,
Before information moved as quick as it does now, how would anybody in LA ever hear of any of these groups that were playing in Seattle in the late 60s or the 70s? I mean, it just didn't really happen.
That's why Quincy Jones left, right? I mean, these people had to go. That's what I'm saying is, these people had to go away to get anywhere. Back in the 90s, you just had to play at the off-ramp and here on Interscope for at least one record.
What they did is they handpicked people and pulled them out of the scene. Come on, Jimmy. Come on with us. We got this for you. Come on, George Benson. Let's go over here. We got this for you. And they kept doing it and kept doing it and kept doing it, but they never really came in and said, hey, this is what's cool about Seattle. I'm going to take all you guys, which, like Berry Gordy.
Seattle it's never been a place, at that time especially, has never been a place to think that you're going to make it big. It's not like that anymore. Ever since you had, groups like Pearl Jam and stuff like that, and Nirvana and all that, all of a sudden now everybody wants to pay attention to Seattle,
It's the nature of the music industry, because you do it because you love it, but then you want to be able to do it and have it recognized.
These guys were really struggling, and they were as great as anybody. I mean, they really should have been the Motown sound, but there was no place to showcase their gifts here.
You got $25 if you're lucky, $15, $20. And you're carrying B3 organs up 2 flights of stairs and renting trucks and loading, It was tough.
Bands could barely even cut a record. They didn't have the money to even make a record. So to make it and distribute it and get it out there is almost impossible on your own without the help of, a major record label.
There really wasn't a strategy. It was, unfortunately based on, if you're really, really good, and if you're a really great band, someone will discover you.
If we'd have been thinking about it, correctly, like you had people like Jimi Hendrix who came from Seattle, but he had to leave Seattle, But we weren't thinking of it like that. And
we just all thought that somebody would see us, or Quincy would be sitting in the audience and say, you guys are great, here's a contract, here's a couple mil. We actually kind of believed that.
Much more music at the soul of the Northwest. KYAC. Get it.
Quincy Jones, his brother, Lloyd Jones, was a DJ, and he liked that song, Sweet Soul Lady.
He wanted to be a musician first because he'd hang out with us and party, you know. And then this electrician took him under his wing, and he built the first antenna for that station, KYC. And they said the disc jockey didn't show up today, so you're on.
And Lloyd had passed a copy of the record on to Quincy, and Quincy expressed some interest. And boy, was that ever a tremendous aid to us as a group. They sent us contracts, and the company name was Gula Matari and Rexford Records.
We signed those contracts, and we made it to L.A. before those contracts did through the mail. You see what I'm saying? Oh, man, we were so excited. We got there at night. I slept on the equipment in the trailer. You know, I don't know the other guys, we were all sleeping right there, though. We weren't moving from that spot until in the morning when they came to open the doors, you see.
Ronnie took the whole band and went to Los Angeles, you know.
The whole group. They pulled away from here in a big van with the organs and everything.
He wanted to go by himself, so he went by himself. And the whole band just broke up. Didn't know what I was going to do. I just went up there and started singing. I walked up to the clubs. They said, well, man, nobody knows anything about you. I said, that's okay, you will. I signed with Uni Records. It was me, Hugh Masekela, Neil Diamond, this guy named Big Black. We was the four main attractions that were supposed to be signed on the label, on the first Uni label.
I had a shirt made up that said Robbie Hill's Family Fair on it. And I told the guys in the group, I said, all right, we're done rehearsing. Everybody has basically left their jobs. I said, I'm going to California. I'm gonna put that shirt on. Don't know why I did that. I mean, who knows Family Affair? I remember I was down in the lobby area of RTA Records, and I was just like this and said, dang, man, you know, I came way down here. I don't know anybody. I remember I was sitting there, and this guy named Tony Rhodes, a black gentleman, came down. He said, I've heard of you guys. And we got to, I said, you know, I've heard of you guys. And he said, well, we're looking for a group. And I told him, I said, well, we're looking for some work. You know, so he said, well, blah, blah. And after we went into this, he said, how quick can you get the group down here? Because just that quick, 2 or 3 calls, he at least had us a month worth of work. We were practicing. And he said, hey, you guys, I think I got an opening for you. I think I got a chance to get you guys up down the Shore Show. And not only that, you become the backup group for the Main Ingredients. Back in that era, they had all kinds of singing groups, the Main Ingredients, Blue Magic, the Temptations. All those groups have to have backup groups. And she said, who was that fabulous, tremendous group?
Seattle is a place that for a musician, you want to leave. And that's what I did. Soon as I had a chance, I got out.
We had been playing down in Pioneer Square, and Roy Ayers saw him and said, man, what a monster.
He said, hey, why don't you come to New York and be in my band? And I said, okay, hell yes.
He came to me and said, Tony, man, I think I gotta go, man. I said, hey, man, this is your shot. Go for it.
I left the band because I kind of got into playing with Jeff Lorber. So, you know, I didn't leave it because I didn't like playing with the guys. It's just that I had a better offer, and so I had to go.
Where we were all at in our lives, milestones started happening, like you're graduating from college, you know, you get a job, and then, you know, things just kind of happen.
Just as we was getting ready to sign with RCA Records, combining with the Main Ingredients, there was a lot of that I call backbiting going in the background. It's kind of like we would have gave all of our rights away as a band. You know, I was told that wouldn't really be in the best interest. So a lot of the guys in the group today, I think that they hold that against me, not taking that opportunity. Now that I think about it, I kind of wish that maybe I had took that. Maybe we wouldn't have been making as much money, but we would have been popular. And we wouldn't have been with them always, forever. Could have broke away, but You know, we had our chances right then. If anything else, that would have put us on top with the Earth, Wind, and Fires and all those type of groups.
It all fell apart pretty much in '71.
We were down there and we were doing pretty good, you know, as far as the gigs and everything. And then, you know, it started kind of falling apart.
These guys really messed themselves up as far as nationally concerned.
We had a contractual disagreement among us, and we left them.
We weren't able to connect with Quincy like we thought maybe we should have been able to. And then we had other people talking to us about managing us, what they could do for us, this and that, you see.
Let's just say the band made a mistake and leave it there.
Do you remember a band called Black on White Affair?
And then after that, the group broke up, you know? And we went back to Seattle.
So when some of that stuff started happening, we're like, all right, we're the next war, you know? We're the next war, we're the next Kool in the Gang, and it just didn't happen. Other things were starting to happen. You know, like I said, the disco thing came, and that didn't matter where you were, as long as you got the 4/4 beat and some kind of groove going and somebody to sing.
What happened? Why did the times go away?
Disco.
Disco.
Disco came in, you know, in the mid-'70s to the late '70s.
Disco did pretty much just pimp slap everybody.
When disco came, it was over. For the longest time, it was all live music for us at the Golden Crown.
The DJ scene started coming into play. So a lot of the live music places just kind of faded out.
We went from hiring bands every week, 52 weeks a year, to hiring bands maybe half the time.
You know, you could have a DJ that could play every band that you wanted to hear in one night.
Don't have to worry about the band being drunk or band or whatever things the bands do or being too loud or anything. We can control it. Once that came in, then the gigs just started drying up.
From a financial standpoint, it was good business. Broke our hearts, but it was just what the business plan called for at the time.
Once in a while, we'd go out to some of the disco clubs, but it just wasn't the same.
But we were coming off a gas crisis. I mean, there were signs right here in Seattle that would say, you know, the last people leaving Seattle, please turn off the light, because Boeing didn't get that SST contract. There was no Microsoft at the time, and Seattle was pretty much a one-trick pony.
And then when the economy got bad is when the clubs went over. And the black clubs are always the first to feel the pinch of a bad economy.
That was the way it went for a lot of nightclubs.
It was rough for them. And so that's when you start seeing the bands disappear.
I think the guys stayed. There were little gigs, little things that people did. But the band sort of disbanded.
If you don't have an outlet, a place for musicians to play, you know, they don't exist. You know, not only do the clubs not exist, but you don't have the musicians.
It was all right here. And I mean, you can go to any club, you would know somebody, we all get together, it was just like a big party. You know, everybody got along. Man, wow, there'll just never be any times like that. I really miss it, I really do.
Yeah, I love my cars. I am known for having nice cars. And then the license plate on that is old school, because I'm old school. So now I play gospel music, and I've been playing for the churches around here the last 6.5, going on 7 years. The church I'm playing for is 50 miles away, so that gives me an excellent chance to drive my big old boats. I was aspiring to be a rock star, you know, until till I was like about 22. And then I came, you know, to realize that I didn't want to be a rock star. Maybe I wouldn't have been strong enough to live through it all. You see what I'm saying?
We were the group that we were always just thinking of, I mean, we just thought we were better than just being a local band. Believe me, I mean, the way I feel about my music career, I was this close, even after Cold Bolton Together, to really making something happen, but different choices happened. So I definitely wasn't planning on becoming a teacher. That's not really what I wanted to do with my life, even though I did it with my life. I mean, I wish I was famous as far as, you know, doing that more for my living than being a teacher or whatever. But on the other hand, I'm proud of the fact that I didn't stop playing and I didn't stop improving.
So I just decided to just come home and just, you know, but I wasn't going to ever stop playing music because it was too much a part of me. My whole life was music, you know, that's all I had ever really done that made me feel like a person, you know.
Pain is the name of your game. Pain is the name of your game. Pain is the name of your game.
People aren't really concerned about anything but the moment. And if I'm fixing your roof on your house and it's gonna rain, you're not gonna be thinking about, hey, what do you do otherwise? The first thing he said is, when are you gonna get that damn hole fixed?
This spot gets me every time, man. I'm telling you. Here. Oh, you cats ain't cool, man. He didn't eat man, I threw him 3 of my good and plenty, man, and the cat didn't eat them. These ducks here are crazy, man. Stupid mallards. Yeah, you should have got them when I told you. Now you're looking everywhere for one, scratching your head trying to figure it out. We used to come down here all the time. As kids, and then when we were little kids, my mother and father used to bring us down here, me and my brother. And it hasn't changed. Listen, I don't know where I end up, but I know so far that it's been exciting and it's been a beautiful travel. And listen, all I see is some more beautiful travel. All right.
What do you see in your future? What would you like to do with the rest of your life?
Live it like I am right now.
When you decide Jesus will be your guide, put a little love in your heart, and the world will be a better place.
We've been blessed to travel on in 33 countries and 5 continents. A woman emailed me and asked me if I was Patronelle Staten, because she just put my name in the search engine. And how many Patronelles are there in the world? 1. So it popped up Patronelle Wright. So she asked me that, and I said yes. So she flew from London here to this little church. And she said, I'm the person who contacted you. She offered to buy my 45, and I only have 1, because we only made 500. I was offered $2,500 for my copy. I told him, no, you put another 0 on it, I might consider it.
It's quite good condition, yeah. I was quite pleased with that.
Yeah.
Prized possession.
Prized possession. So is that one of your favorites?
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah.
This 45 had surfaced in London from someone coming to America, going through a warehouse of old stuff, and finding this song, played it, liked it, gave it to the disc jockeys in London, and it just took off.
I first heard it quite a few years ago. There was a DJ in the UK called Butch, and first heard it for him and just loved it as soon as I heard it, and I thought, I've got to get this record, and luckily I had the chance, it came along and I got it. So.
Hadn't thought about it in about 25 years.
This is my toy room here. Got lots of musical instruments, a mess, and
It's really cool in here.
a complicated computer rig. Here's another toy I have. This is an alembic fretless 6-string bass, and I have specialized in fretless ever since the Black and White Affair. I changed over from fretted to fretless while I was in the Black and White Affair, and I haven't looked back. I've thought about this a lot, about what could have been versus what is. What could have been is that I could have got immersed in some kind of a business career, like being an insurance salesman, or who knows what, other mundane activity, and I would never have had the rich experience of being immersed in the black community, which I learned a tremendous about. Plus, all the music, you take music with you when you die, all the experiences, but you're not going to take, if you make $1 million in your life and you save 3/4 of it, you're not going to take that with you when you die, but you're going to take your music with you.
You know what? I thought the hardest thing would be in my life was when the group finally broke up. As far as I was concerned, entertainment was over. One thing that bothered me is how am I going to act being in a white-collar world working, you know, the change that you would have to go through. You know, but I handled it well. I really did. Now this area that we're here, this is called the first floor. All of this here, this is the atrium where the students eat. This whole floor here, all the offices and stuff here, all the offices you see here, this is my area. This is Seattle Central Community College. You know, I've been here, going on 8 years. My brother Will, you know, he's been here 18 years. And Kenny, before he retired, he was here for 10 years. I have no regrets. And everything I've done in life through music, I have no regrets. I think that I've achieved everything that I've ever wanted and have done, probably more so than most people in life.
I had lunch with Matt from Light in the Attic. They were wanted to do some new stuff, so we were just shooting ideas around, and they said, if you could do anything you wanted to do with us, what would it be?
He kept mentioning, probably around 2002 or 3, kept mentioning that there was this amazing old soul scene and funk scene in the 60s, and I did not believe him. He finally brought over some of the 45s. One of them was Black and White Affair 45, and I was completely stunned and blown away, and was instantly hooked and knew that I had to do this project. Here you have these, this music that disappeared, you know, 30, 40 years ago, and not even just disappeared, some of it never even appeared then. And then all of a sudden you've brought it back, and you have a chance where someone at the New York Times can actually hear it and write about it, and someone at Rolling Stone can actually hear it and write about it.
Ah, baby, 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 yeah.
And there's a lot more soul bands than on the Wheedle's Groove.
Yeah, oh, loads of them. Loads of them.
Acapulco Gold.
Mr. Clean and the Cleansers.
48 Pounds.
Hot Ice.
Southside Syndicate.
SPD Seattle Pure. Dynamite.
The Majestics.
I worked hard to see what's out there. I mean, there could be other stuff that I haven't discovered yet, or, you know, tape reels that were never released that never made it out of the studio. But who knows?
The record release party, it was, I mean, the place was packed. I mean, it was totally sold out. We could have played a much bigger venue. First figuring out who was going to play, who wanted to play, who still could play. I wanted as many of these guys to perform who were into performing as possible.
tended to think when that era passed, it was over. Everything ended. And no, music does not end. Music does not end.
There were a number of shows. At the same time we were playing shows, we were recording a new record.
Someone came up with the idea to do a new record with everybody.
Seeing how incredible these guys still were, they could still play. I mean, some of them sound just as good now as they did then. Dynamite D was the producer. We all decided we wanted to do some covers, but also some originals, and recorded Carney Bartons and keep it, fairly, true to the original vision of this. Recording Carney Bartons was a serious honor. That was one of the most fun things of the project.
Is the Leslie switch working? Is the Leslie switch working now?
Oh, it's taped on for a second.
Yeah. Is it holding?
Well, it's holding right now. I think you need some duct tape.
Okay. I've got some in here. I'm just not sure exactly where it is and whether I can get to it.
Got those. Yeah.
You can play the melody if you want.
I think, you know what I was thinking I would do is, I would wait, let the first three ride by, then when you set the melody up, then drop the piano in.
Okay.
I mean, just to see what, for something different,
Okay.
give it an added color there.
Sure.
Okay?
All right.
All right. Yeah, okay, good. I'm gonna play off that.
Okay.
One, two, three, four.
It's like bringing everything back, man. It's like music brings everybody together, and it's bringing the old with the new and creating something special.
I remember calling up Pat Wright and saying, hey, you should record, we're doing this new record, and you should record a version of Jesus Christ Pose by Soundgarden, but turn it into a classic, gospel song. And I think that she thought I was probably totally nuts at first, but once I kind of read her the lyrics and kind of explained to her the idea we had for it, and she listened to it, of course, I think she understood what we were going for.
I loved it. It was my favorite, man. That was so cool. It's like, yeah, beautiful, beautiful, fully respectful and beautiful.
One idea with the Soundgarden song was to do, you know, gel the Seattle rock part and, you know, the soul era, and to mix the two, which it did so well.
You know, I would have loved to have go back into this time and see what that would have been like. I'm sure it's a lot the same. You know, these people probably knew each other. They probably played on each other's records. You know, I think with any scene, it doesn't matter if it's, you know, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it's not that different. It's still people playing music, and everybody doesn't really care about anything. They just want to play.
You can look back and say, wow, that was really so hip way back then. And I could run into people like Manuel Stanton or Robbie Hill or Tony Gable, and we could talk about the old days, but those weren't the old days. Those were the days. Those were the now, and that's what you did.
I played in good bands and bad bands, and only a handful of all the bands I've been in. I mean, I stopped counting. It's something like 80 bands I've been in and out of over the years. Many, more than most people. And of all those bands, there were maybe 4 that were remarkable or any good. And Black and White Affair has got to be 1 or 2, maybe number 1.
There used to be a time I wanted to be a big star and I wanted to be rich. It's not all about that anymore. It's just doing what you love, seeing that your music is providing something to the public where, you know, you can see their happiness.
And a lot of what I saw with Kobold and Together and that whole scene and the things that I learned about women, I learned about drugs, I learned about, you know, the mix between white and black and that whole, all that dynamic. And it's just really, without that, I mean, I would not have a career. I can say point blank, I would not have the career that I have if it wasn't for that start like that.
I thought one day that I would just be a family man and, you know, no interest in music, but I still have this part in me, you know, so I guess it just doesn't make any difference how old you get, as long as you can pick up a pair of sticks or you can bang on a keyboard or whatever, you know, that's just a part of who you are.